Aloha everyone, and welcome to another Tinker's Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer, and in this video I'm going to be doing an H2 Genesys Brown's gas generator, also known as HHO, unboxing and setup. This H2 Genesys is brought to you by a company called H2 Biohacker. And I just got a new one. I've got two others, but I just got this H2 Genesys, and I thought this time, hey, I did product reviews in the past, but I've never done an unboxing to kind of show you what the process is to set one of these up and get them running. It's very simple. I'll try to keep this short and sweet, and let's just jump right into it. Now, the first thing you're going to get is, this is an overview of a Brown's gas generator. If you're not familiar with it, these are all the different pieces. Take just a second to kind of familiarize yourself with it. But basically, this here is the generator itself. Water goes into a tank in here, and then there's an electrolysis process. Because there's electronics, you've got your amp meters and your control panel to kind of keep an eye on what's going on. You've got your off and on button, and then you've got a water indicator because, it's important that you know how much water is in the tank and that you keep it at an adequate level at all times. Now, the gas is generated here when the electrolysis process kicks in. It goes up an expansion chamber, it comes out, it goes through this bottle here and a second bottle. And these bottles, what they act as are filters, and so they're filled with water, and you bubble the gas through the water to capture any of the sodium hydroxide that's used as to expedite the electrolysis process. And so that's kind of what these filters are for. So these are your filter bubblers, and then when the gas finally goes through those two bubblers, it goes into a drinking container right here, and where you can connect a cannula to it so you can inhale, and then at the same time you can bubble water that you want to drink. And that's really it. That's what a Brown's gas generator does. And if you've looked at H2 generators, it's almost the same thing. So now here's the thing that you need to know when you buy an H2 Genesys from H2 Biohacker. Links below, obviously. Now, the thing is that this is what it does not come with, okay? So after you order your generator, then you need to order some sodium hydroxide, okay? And you need to get some distilled water because, they don't provide that. The reason that they don't ship sodium hydroxide with the box is because it's a caustic chemical, and that, and there's all, the Postal Service, tons of paperwork. They don't go through that. It's so easy. Just order it on eBay. It's very cheap. Now, I learned in this process that it's recommended by me that you should have a gram scale, something that can measure up to 50 grams. So you can measure the approximate amount of sodium hydroxide you need to make the electrolyte. Obviously, you're going to need your own measuring container. It needs to be glass. And then it's recommended that you, that you have safety glasses, so you got to be real careful. When you're mixing the electrolyte, it is caustic, which is the opposite of acid, but it does the same thing to you. It will burn you. So you really want to be very careful. So wear safety glasses, and of course, it does come with some plastic gloves, but I found out in the process that the gloves that come with it are too small for my hands. So I just wore my regular cheap winter gloves. But that's basically it. So this is what you need to know. That you need to have. Everything else will come with the box, okay? And I'm going to show you in a video the whole process here. I just want to walk you through the concepts and everything you need to think about. So the steps that I'm going to be going through, bottom line is the very first thing is open the box and do a parts check. You want to make sure you have all the parts. Just like everything else you ever open that has to be assembled, you want to just make sure the parts are there before you get started so you don't piss yourself off. Okay. Now, the next thing is the very second step that this is my way of doing it. It is not the formal H2 Biohacker way. This is just how I approach this. I've multiple different generators, and so it's not my first rodeo. So this is how I do it, okay? So first thing I do is I'll go out and mix the electrolyte solution after I do the parts check, because if there's a missing part, I stop, and of course, you have to go, and why even bother, right? But if I have all the parts, then boom, I'm going to go and do number two. I'm going to go mix the electrolyte solution, and the reason that's the very next step is because it gets hot, and that's why you need like a I use a Pyrex pitcher. All right. You could use a mason jar because those mason jars are meant to go into pressure canners, right? So they're hardcore glass, but you definitely need a very, very sturdy glass container because it will get hot. And it won't get so hot it's going to melt anything, but it will get hot where you can't hold your hand to it. So you're going to want to go, and because it gets hot, you're going to need to let it cool off. So normally In like normal summer temperatures, it'll take about an hour, but it's winter right now. I think it was like 46 today, and it took about maybe half an hour to cool down. So you definitely want to just do that first. While that's cooling, then you go back and you attach your bottle holders, you connect all your hoses, you insert the bubblers, fill them up with water, you add the expansion chamber, and then when the electrolyte is cooled off, then you can go ahead and fill your tank. There you go. It's really simple. Now, the control panel, when you go to turn it on, is really quite simple. There's basically two sets of buttons, the left and the right, and then the display has a top and bottom. So the bottom number is going to be your power. And then the right-hand side, right here, it says percent power, is what goes up and down. So you can make it go up or you can go down. And you're going to want to read the user guide as to what the power level settings should be. Now, if you're running it at 100%, you're basically pumping about 10 amps through the generator, and you're going to be burning up a lot of water really quickly. And you're going to have to refill it more often, right? And then there's another concept too about how much gas can your body actually assimilate at any given time anyway. And the average male, a 200-pound human being, basically if you set it at 40% and you're a normal person, you're going to saturate you're going to get as much as you can take in anyway. So going over 40% and breathing inhalation is just really kind of like not even, it's pointless. So you can definitely kind of set it at 40. That's what I run it at when I'm inhaling. And then when I bubble water, you could leave it at 40, or I crank it up to 100 whenever I'm bubbling water, because I just want to get it done. I want to infuse my water with as much brown gas as fast as possible, because that's how I do it. Now, the next set of numbers, which is that top row of numbers, is a frequency generator. Now, there's a little tiny frequency generator, and it pulses the DC power to the electrolyte and the electrolysis system in the tank. And really what that frequency does is it allows you to impart a frequency into the water, okay? Now, there's a lot of discussion as to whether that does anything or not, but it's kind of a cool thing to play with. It comes out of the box set at 25 hertz. Now, this thing will go up all the way to, I believe, 999, and then it'll go up another something. I forgot. Ben told me what it was. Ben is the guy from H2 Biohacker. So, but the whole idea, though, is you can put a frequency in there. And if you're familiar with frequencies and resonant frequency kind of thing, you can kind of play with that, and you can set it at whatever you want. And basically, you're pumping in frequencies into the water. And that's what that does. Again, though, I want to point out there's a lot of debate about whether that does anything. But, it's just there because it's part of the control panel. But the main thing right here is turning the power up and down as you're doing different things, bubbling water versus inhaling the Brown's gas, okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is, after you get it all set up, and in my actual unboxing, I did run into a problem, and I had to troubleshoot my machine, and I had to figure out what was wrong with it, and I fixed it. But if you read the quick start guide, there's all these different things that it covers. So you want to kind of familiarize yourself with the support resources so that you're aware of, where to get your answers when you've got simple questions. So basically, I just want to point out, links in the video description below, that there is a quick start guide, which is what I followed to do this. There's actual full-on user manual for the H2 Genesys, and there's also a Telegram support group. Now, it's a private group just for people who own the H2 Genesys. Okay, so you've got direct access to the engineer who designed it and built it. His name is Ben. And so after you buy this, you'll get invited to that group where you can talk to other owners and just talk about whatever you need to talk about, ask any questions and so forth. Okay, so those are your support resources. It's really well supported. Ben's exceptional at customer service. So, it's a really good, company in terms of just supporting their product, good product, etc. So that's that. Now, I also just as part of this unboxing video, I just want to let you know that there's going to be a discount code for anyone who has not bought one of these. Hey, I've got worked out with Ben a discount code, Kelmer discount. It'll save you $100 on an H2 Genesys if you're interested in getting one after you watch this video. It's going to last as long as it's going to last. So there's no expiration date as of now. So if you're interested, I just want to point out, hey, take advantage of the discount and you can go ahead and get yourself one. All right, so let's get into the video. Now, this is how it comes. Basically, it comes in two boxes taped together. All right, and then so once you get it, you're gonna basically, well, make sure you got both of them together. That's the main thing, that didn't get separated in shipping. So then when you open up the boxes, the little box is going to contain all of your parts. Okay, so you've got your cannulas, your drinking containers, your expansion chamber, your bubbler filters, your bottle holders, all that. And then in the bigger box, you've got the generator itself and the power cord. Okay, so now as you go ahead and unpack all of this stuff, the very first thing you're going to want to do, obviously, is a parts check. So make sure you've got all the parts. You've got the generator, you've got the power cord. That's what's in the big box, okay? Now, in the little box, you've got these other parts right here. And, like I said, it's really important you do a parts check. So really what it is you want to make sure that you've got basically the expansion chamber, which is going to go on top of the generator, okay? And then it's going to come with a little, amount of Teflon tape. You're going to need that Teflon tape to make sure that all your connections are tight as it relates to the expansion chamber. You've got your 2 filter bubblers, all right? And you've got the hose that connects the 2 of them together. So you've got the expansion chamber connects to one filter bubbler to the next filter bubbler, then the second filter bubbler goes to the water container, all right? And so they all have hoses, and you just want to make sure all the hoses are there, okay? And then, of course, you've also got your, right here, if you look right here, I'm just going to speed this up a bit. You've got your bottle holders, and they're basically the same thing that goes on a bicycle to hold a water bottle, and they work perfectly for this. So you can go ahead and attach those to the generator, and you got an extra little parts packet in case you need any more, air splitters and bubblers. And then, of course, it does come with 2 7-foot cannulas. And then it also comes with what you need to mix the, let me see if I can just get to that real quick. It comes with what you need to mix. So let me see if I can get to that picture. Okay. Well, there's the lye right there. Because I want to point out that you have to get your own lye. But if you look at the bottom right there, I'm just trying to see. There it is right there. Whoop. I put my hand in the way. Okay, so then this is what else it comes with. It comes with a plastic gloves, a plastic spoon, a little measuring cup that's kind of got, basically in a Sharpie, it's got like it says 25 grams on the cup, so that with the idea that I believe H2 biohackers, I think that they, obviously they're saying, hey, use this cup, you can measure out 25 grams. But for the lye that I'm using, and it all could be about particulate size creates greater volume, or smaller size creates more volume, right? Basic, granular versus powder kind of thing. But with the lye that I bought, I discovered that it's way more than 25 at the 25 line. So that's why I recommend that you have a gram scale so you know for sure what it is. So the little funnel is if you were to actually add the electrolyte directly into the generator, whereas I didn't do that. I actually poured the electrolyte through the expansion chamber, which, it was easier. So anyway, you basically, again, right there, you want to have a little gram scale. You want to have your own electrolyte. Okay, and then here you go. So now this is what I was talking about. I use my little gram scale to measure the sodium hydroxide, also known as lye. And so you can see where this little line is on the little cup. Well, I just kind of want to point out here, as I was measuring the lye, and again, it could be that the granulars of the lye that I bought are smaller than the ones he was using for measuring this, but you can see we're at the 25 line, right? It measures out at 34 grams. So, so bottom line is you want to go with a scale versus going by a line drawn on a cup, because you don't know what type of lye you're using. But at the end of the day, you're going to need 50 grams, okay? So you want to measure out 50 grams, and you're going to want to add 50 grams, okay, to 700 milliliters of distilled water. So before you get started, you want to get your distilled water. Again, I use this Pyrex container because, it has measuring lines. It makes it so simple. Mason jars don't, So again, if you have one of these, they're really cheap. It's good to get. And you can use it for other purposes, right, after you wash it. So anyway, so you can see the distilled water only. Never, 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 never put any other kind of water inside the tank. If you do, you will destroy the plates in your electrolyzer and you're out of generator, okay? So only used distilled water. And so in this example, you've got the very starting batch. You measure it to 700 milliliters with 50 grams of lye, and you go ahead and just mix it up. So the very first thing, if you've never done this before, you just pour in a little bit, because the thing about lye is it turns into a rock as soon as it hits water. So you've got to get in there and stir really quickly and kind of scrape it off the bottom, and then it's going to turn super milky, and then it's going to get really hot. Okay, so it's getting really hot. It's going to be milky, but then you know what? If you just keep stirring and stirring and stirring and keep it moving, and I would say that I gave it a good, like at least 60-second stir just to make sure that all the lye was dissolved. So you want to do a little bit, stir, a little bit, the rest of it, and stir. But you got to make sure you go fast because it will turn into a rock. And I've had that happen to me when I wasn't paying attention. Anyway, and if you notice, I'm outside doing this. Never is another thing. Never, 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 never mix this stuff up inside your house. Okay, so I'm wearing glasses. I've got my gloves on. I'm outside. I'm upwind of this thing because the fumes coming off of this when you mix it are nasty. So please do not do this inside your house. But here you go. This is the example. You keep stirring this thing for about 60 seconds and you scrape off all the hard parts off the bottom and it's going to go crystal clear white. Right now it's still just a little bit murky, but as you'll see when I go to add it to the generator, after it cools off, it'll be completely clear. Anyway, you can put the bottle holders on either side of the generator, okay? Now, I chose to put it, now it's in the picture, it's on the right side. I chose to put it on the left side, primarily because of where I have it positioned next to my desk, because I have it, this is where I keep it. I want to sit there and inhale brown gas all day long while I'm working at home. So that's why I put it on the left side, but it can go on either side. You can have one on both sides, whatever you want to do. But anyway, that's the screw where you put it in. Now, in terms of, I think I just jumped over this. So one of the things about the expansion chamber right here. So one of the things is this thing comes, the expansion chamber nozzle came with like Teflon tape on it already, but it was kind of like wrinkled up and stuff. I took it off and I put on a fresh roll, 3 wraps, just to make sure everything's super tight, because this is one thing you do not want leaking. If that stuff leaks onto the generator, it'll eat the paint off, okay? And you want it to look nice. So then basically after I put fresh Teflon tape on the nozzle, then I basically screw on or you're going to do this when you have yours, you screw on your expansion chamber onto the top of the generator. Okay, so once you get that on, then you go and you hook it up to the next thing and the next thing, and the very next thing that you would hook up the expansion chamber to would be the first bubbler. So once that's tight, there you go. You hook that up to the first bubbler. Then you take the second one with the little hose I showed you, and you connect that bubbler to the second bubbler. And once you have the second bubbler, then you're going to want to connect it to the drinking container, and it's really that simple. Now, of course, as you notice, it's all empty because I like to put it, this is my way again, I put it all together before I put any water in anything. Now, here, let me just talk about water. Well, now, what kind of water do you put into the outsides of these things, okay? Well, I want to point out that the water to use in the bubblers, the filters, should also be distilled water. And when you need to fill up your tank again, because you're keeping an eye on that meter, right, on the front of it, you're going to want to use the water out of these filter bubblers. Now, the rule of thumb is you should empty these and refill them with fresh distilled water every 10 hours of run. And you got to ballpark it and keep track, okay? But the bottom line is what these things capture is any residual sodium hydroxide that escapes with the gas, and that's what it's for. It traps any residuals. We're talking parts per million, sometimes parts per billion of sodium hydroxide getting into the filter bubbler water. You're never going to drink this, or you do not drink this. But it just basically, you pour it back into the generator. Okay, through the expansion chamber, the top of the expansion chamber, and you'll see that in a second. So that's what these are for. Every 10 hours, give it fresh distilled water, take what you have water that you have in it, and you pour it back into the expansion chamber. Now, you never want to overfill your expansion chamber, so you'll be able to tell if the water gets too high and you can see it inside the chamber, it's full, okay? And then if you have any excess in the bubblers, just throw it away. But the bottom line is that's what these filters are for, is to filter out the lye. And at the same time, you use that water to put back into your Jenny to keep it filled and keep it running, all right? Because it's going to be burning up water to make hydrogen and oxygen for you, okay? So then, of course, you got the power cord. You want to put power, connect it to power. And then once you've got the bubblers filled up, and you've got everything's plugged in and everything's connected, then you want to take now notice it's perfectly clear now. It's cooled off. That's your electrolyte that I did earlier outside. And then you see how the top of the expansion chamber just pops right off with some Teflon tape to keep it snug. And then that's how I did it. I just pour it right in there. It's a lot easier than trying to use a tiny funnel with a tiny nozzle. Just do this and then save yourself some trouble. And then notice I do have a towel wrapped around the bottom because I don't want to get any spills, any drops, anything onto my generator. Again, it'll eat the paint, okay? So then here you go. Once I pour the 700 milliliters in, then basically I put the cover back on. However, now the machine will take up to 1.1 liters, and that 1.1 equals full, all right? If you read the quick start guide, it says you go ahead and get it up to 0.8. So I just added, after this, I didn't film it, I added a little bit more just plain distilled water into the expansion chamber, and mine actually popped up to 0.9. There's a little bit of a delay between what you're looking at on the in the gauge in the front and what you're pouring. So as I was pouring it in, I saw 0.8 and I stopped. Little did I know it went up to 0.9 after that, because there's a little delay before that gauge, actually, accurately levels, right? So that's fine though. The main thing is you don't want to go over 1.1 liters. And then keeping it at 0.9 actually is about 50% full, and that's fine. It runs perfectly fine at 50% full. Bottom line though is you don't want to go over 1.1. And so I try to keep it at 0.9 to 1 at all times so that you don't have problems with overfilling and you don't have problems with not having enough water in it. So once you pour water into your Jenny, then you basically take the top of the expansion chamber and you just snugly fit it right back onto the top, and you are good to go. And you go ahead and you're done. You just turn on that Jenny and you're good to go. Now, here's where I ran into a problem. I went ahead and turned it on, and I got power. I've got my control panels going. My gauges are reading. I'm putting amps in there. It's at 100% power, and look over here. Nothing. No gas was coming out of the generator. So that's kind of where I was like, okay, so I had to stop. Now, this is what I did. I took out the user guide and I went through the troubleshooting steps, and I had to check every single little connection that I made, because any one of those little connections, all the hoses and everything, expansion chamber, you name it, could be leaking air, or gas, right? So I checked all of it. Everything was snug. And then I finally figured out where it was having the problem. And because when I went back and I took the top of the expansion chamber off and I listened to what was going on inside the tank, and I could hear water bubbling inside the Jenny. All right. So the gas was coming out of the generator, but it wasn't getting into the filters. And so I discovered, okay, well, what's blocking it? And it turns out to be that little tiny valve on the top of the expansion chamber. This is mine, okay, just for me. But mine had the little valve on the top of the expansion chamber was blocked, whatever was defective part. So I just took it off right there. So you see right here, right there, I took off the little valve and I just connected the hose directly to the expansion chamber because it works fine. You don't have to have the valve there. Okay, so I just connected it directly to the expansion chamber, and once I got that valve out of the way, then the gas was free to flow, and my Jenny worked just fine. So there's that little valve, and that thing was just defective. Nobody's fault. They don't make those themselves. So that, but bottom line is, if you remember that little parts bag, I could easily just put one back up there, but I don't really want to mess with it. I got it running. I'm very happy. So then I want to turn it down to 40 so I can go ahead and inhale. So this is how you would turn it down. You push the down button. It turns down the power. Again, you set it at 40. Now, if I could make the power go up by pushing the up button, and then these two buttons on the left, again, are the frequency. Now, what I like to do for frequencies, I like to set mine to like 528. It's like the solfeggio range. There's also the Nogier range. There's different ranges of frequencies. And feel free. I mean, this is something you want to play with to see what works best for you. And other people kind of like, some people actually report that they feel differently breathing Brown's gas depending on the frequency that they're running into the tank. Well, you never know, right? Okay, so that's basically it. So let me kind of show you. This is my setup. So this is my desk. I made a mistake when I bought my desk when I moved. And it looked big in the picture, but it turned out to be really small. So anyway, I got a TV tray. But anyway, this is how I set it up. So it's just sitting next to my desk, and you can see why I put the bubblers on the left, right? So, and then, but this is how I do it. Instead of bubbling into that container, I have one of these, like these Layla quantum water bottles, and so I kind of just like to bubble my water in the actual stainless steel water bottle. So I just, I don't mess around with the little splitters and all of that. It's just, it's just too many tubes, right? So I just kind of keep it simple, and I just have one tube that I have hanging over my generator, and the other tube is my cannula, right? So I just swap them out by hand right here at the second bubbler whenever I need to swap back and forth. And you don't drink that many water bottles every day for that to be a hassle. And mainly like 99% of the day, I've got a cannula on and I'm breathing. But basically, I bubble into my my Layla Q water bottle using a bubbler stone, and then I just pluck that out, plug it in my cannula, and I'm good to go. And I turn it up and down depending on what I'm doing. And that's really it. So that's my setup. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with before I leave you is one of the things about accessories that I really want to point out, which is really cool about H2 Genesys, is that one of the concepts of Brown's gas is that it's really, really helpful to be bubbling water. If like studies show, or not studies, but anecdotal testimonies have indicated that if you could drink at least 1.5 liters of bubbled water a day, that it has therapeutic effects, right? So that's a really good thing to do, and that's what I do. One of those Layla bottles is like, I think, 75 or 0.75 milliliters. So just 2 of those a day, right? I bubble 2 of those a day to get a therapeutic effect of Brown's gas, from just drinking. And then on top of that, I'm inhaling. But there's another way to benefit from Brown's gas that a lot of people kind of overlook. And so one of the things I want to point out is that you can, what we call bagging. And so these are some of the accessories. Now, the accessories on the left are things that I got off of Amazon and Promo Life, okay? And where they're plastic cast covers, right? Like for when you're hurt, and so you got ones for arms and you got for now those work just fine. And you can get those on Amazon, and you can just basically take your water bubbler stone, right? And you just, and connect it to your generator, and you just stick that in the bag and then tighten it down, and the bag fills up. And you can basically treat yourself topically with Brown's gas. Okay, so that's a really cool accessory. I just want to point this out to you. It's not included in the box, all right, but it is something that's like the third way to benefit from. And if you're going to get a generator and spend that level of money, you're going to want to maximize your, the benefit that you're going to get from having the Brown's gas generator. So definitely try bagging. My testimony on bagging is one time I burnt the holy crap out of my hand cooking by getting hot grease on my wrist. And I had like 3/4 inch size 3rd degree burns basically on my wrist. And it was painful. And so what I did was I grabbed one of these that I just happened to have, and I plugged into my Brown's gas, and that thing puffed up like a big balloon, right? Not my hand, the bag. And then I just treated it for through a whole movie or something, right? And I'll tell you what, before I even noticed, and it was really painful. These things were blistered out, the burns, right? But within the movie time, right? The pain was gone. And and so it was just amazing that it just, because nothing else would do that, and so 'cause that's all I did was use the Brown's gas. And so my personal testimony on bagging was that it eliminated the pain. And the thing about it was the pain wasn't just gone that moment. It never came back. It took several weeks for the blisters to subside and the burn to heal. But from that moment on, it never hurt again. And I was just shocked that it was that effective. But that's just my testimony. So I'm a big proponent of bagging with Brown's gas. So again, go to Amazon if you want to get the plastic one. But there's one downside to the plastic ones, and that is that you get really, really, really sweaty. So they get really wet. And whether you like that or not, it's but it's going to get really kind of gross. Now, this other bag that I've got over here is a Teflon bag, and it's also a leg bag, but it's not like a cast cover. And I really just kind of wanted to point it out because I actually used to use that with my Brown's gas generator. Another one And the thing about it, the reason it's made out of Teflon, because I also do ozone bagging, and so that if for ozone you have to use Teflon tubing and Teflon bags. So that's why I have a Teflon leg bag. But it works, right? So it's just another type of bag that you can use for topical application of gas. Now, if you are interested in Teflon bags, you can get those off of and just go search for it. And then of course the plastic bags. But this is what I want to point out was about a year or so ago, H2 Genesys started making, or H2 Biohacker started making these sleeves. And what's really cool is they're made out of this material that's kind of like the stuff that they make tents out of, right? And what's really weird is you wouldn't think that a cloth bag would hold the gas well, but it actually holds it really, really well. And so the way they make these sleeves is and they're very versatile. So you could put you can like basically target whatever area of your body that's hurting you, right? And you cinch off both ends, and then you put the tube in there, and then it poofs up with the gas, but then it doesn't get so expanding where you have to let the gas out. It just kind of it's like perfect. It's perfect material that will hold enough gas in, but once the pressure builds out, it'll let it seep naturally out. And it's really, really handy. And those are available on the H2 Biohacker website. So, if you're interested in bagging, I just really wanted to point that out just to kind of just close the loop here. Okay, so again, that is how you set up the H2 Genesys from H2 Biohacker. All right. Again, there's a discount code to try to save you guys some money. Thank you for watching this unboxing video. I hope you learned something. If you got any questions for myself or Ben, you can find Ben here at the h2biohacker.com website. Very super helpful. Again, if you do buy one, you can go ahead and join the Telegram chat group for Genesys owners. Again, and my name is K. Elmer, and I am the guy who runs the Tinkers Academy. And if you have any questions for me, you can find me at tinkers.academy, and your URL window goes right to my blog. I got a huge page, by the way. I have a big page all about Brown's gas. Tons of resources. I've been collecting information about Brown's gas for a couple of years now. I'm just fascinated by it. So everything is on that site, everything from the patents for it, different videos I've done about it, and so forth. So if you want to learn more about Brown's gas, come to the Tinkers Academy. If you're interested in getting a H2 Genesys, head on over to H2 Biohacker to ask for Ben. Great guy, and I hope this was helpful. So thank you for watching, and have a great day. Aloha.